Good afternoon, and welcome everyone to the Winner's Circle series. This is the third of our three-part series for National Black MBA. I am so excited to be here with you. My name is Charmaine Ward Milner, and I humbly serve on the national board of the National Black MBA, and I serve as the secretary on the board. I'm also the past president of the Atlanta chapter. In addition, I work for Georgia Power, where I lead the corporate relations team across the state of Georgia. And we focus on engaging those grassroots and influential leaders of nonprofit organizations of our diverse customer communities, specifically African American, Hispanic, Asian, LGBTQ, women, and seniors. And I am a serial entrepreneur, hence why I am so excited to be here today with you. National Black MBA Association launched the Scale Up Pitch Challenge in 2017, which works to satisfy the mission of the association to help create and support wealth building opportunities for its members. Previous winners have experienced great success with investors due to exposure and funding provided through this challenge. This challenge is a pitch competition designed to make big ideas bigger by encouraging its members to create startups that are scalable. National Black MBA provides startups the unique opportunity to connect with early stage investors and venture capitalists who are ready to invest. National Black MBA is hosting its first Scale Up Winners Circle series. This series will showcase past Scale Up winners. You will have the opportunity to hear firsthand from scale winners their journey to entrepreneurship and gain great insight on how they position themselves and their businesses for success. So today, we are speaking with the 2019 Scale Up Pitch Challenge winner, Javier Evelyn, founder and CEO of Allergy. So let me tell you a little bit about Javier. He is a patient entrepreneur who personally suffers from multiple food allergies, and he is the founder and CEO of Allergy, a med tech and digital health startup. He's also a founding team member of MedTech Color, an organization aimed to advance the representation of persons of color in the medical device industry. He was most recently appointed to the board of AdvaMed Axel, a group of industry leaders collectively working to improve the ecosystem for medical device development and innovation, as well as one of the fastest growing food allergy advocacy organizations in the country, FAACT. In 2020, Javier was named as an awardee of the inaugural Black Founders Fund by Google for Startups. He previously made the 2019 Crane's Detroit Business 40 Under 40 list, served as a 2017 Google by Code 2040 Detroit EIR, and served as a Millennial Advisory Board member at First Independence Bank. Prior to all of these endeavors, Javier led in the development of mobile app projects for a multi-billion, yes with a B, multi-billion dollar health insurance company and pharmacy benefit manager. Before working in the tech industry, he was a founding team member of an independent insurance agency where he led in sales and management. Originally from Chicago, Illinois, in my hometown, he received his bachelor's degree from Illinois State University. Towards the end of the interview, get ready because we will be taking questions from the audience. So feel free to put your questions in the comment section. And with that, I want to welcome Javier.
Hey, Charmaine, how are you doing?
I am doing great today. I am so excited to have you join us and to have our audience learn more about your journey as an entrepreneur. So, first of all, I know it's all about the business, but I like to start with the personal. And I want our audience to get to know Javier a little bit. So, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, Charmaine, thanks again. Shout out to the National Black MBA for the opportunity once again. It's always good to reconnect with good folks and a great organization. So yeah, Javier Evelyn, as you mentioned, from Chicago, really Broadview, Illinois, right outside of Chicago. If you zoom in, you know how it is. You're from the city, you got to make sure you say specifically where you're from. But now that that's out the way, I went to St. Joseph High School, just shuttered yesterday. So shout out to my Chargers that are out there. But ultimately, I've been a person that, both of my parents Panamanian, meaning that we were all in the same boat at some point coming from Africa, and some got dropped off a little earlier, right? And we came up, my parents obviously came here right before I was born and really kind of put in, obviously, that get it done, immigrant mentality, just Chicago mentality when you think about it in general, right? Mom's a nurse, did a lot in the healthcare ecosystem out there, Cook County hospital systems as well. Dad worked at Chicago State University, had multiple family members in the insurance industry. That's where it kind of started off. But about me, if I ever need a pick me up, I'm going to look at some comedy. Obviously, we talked about some beforehand. And beyond that, I'm just a passionate individual about most things that are centered around just improving the prospects of individuals, whether it's obviously getting more funding for our Black and Brown founders, or just in general, just kind of building with other folks, other founders that are just trying to build in general. I'm the biggest Bulls fan on the internet, I believe. I should just go ahead and get this tattoo. I have, even though I'm from, allergies out of Detroit. Still love that team, but we could talk about that offline. That's a 2 hour conversation.
I love it. Thank you. Wow. I love how you talked about a lot of different things. Thank you for letting us know a little bit about who you are. And I think that helps to kind of inform people about how you started your business. But tell us a
Mhm,
little bit about allergy. I know what I read in the bio, but tell us
mhm.
really in layman's terms, what is allergy?
Yeah, for sure. So it started off with me personally suffering from multiple food allergies, pistachio, cashews, casein, which is a milk protein, and others, right? And, even though, as mentioned, I have family that's in healthcare, my mom, aunts, multiple aunts, et cetera, cousins, I was always that kid that never carried the EpiPen because you didn't want to stand out or feel different. You wanted to be cool, right? Go outside, play baseball, get dirty, and just not keep that bulky device on you. And as time went on, obviously I was in sales for a bit in Chicago where I learned some foundational skill sets, got into tech after changing careers, learning about websites that were dedicated to the startup community, seeing how great that was. I said, wow, I think we could do something on the software side, right? I learned a lot about healthcare after getting a job as a software developer, mobile developer, at one of the largest health insurance or health plans in the Midwest. And from there, said to myself, we could do this better. So we started off with the idea of a redesigned auto injector for epinephrine. A popular one is the EpiPen, right? Putting on a form factor that allows you to carry it with you at all times. So your device is there when you need it and not when you don't, right? Software wise, and we'll talk about both of those a bit more. Specifically, again, my time working at a health insurance company really just taking as many lessons as possible from what process to run, learning about the industry in general, because healthcare is not a game where you say, I build a thing, I sell the thing right away. In some cases, you can get away with it. You may have regulatory, you may get it approved, et cetera, for a reimbursement, right? So I was blessed to get that information and just foundation up front. So in general, we're here to build proactive patient engagement tools for the 220 million people worldwide. We believe that we can just kind of piggyback off of the success of consumer-based products, where you have that software hardware play that folks are pretty accustomed to. So really, I wanted to build the company for myself, but I found that there was a much bigger market, and we've been, hitting those milestones ever since.
Wow, this is fascinating. I mean, I think I never had food allergies, but I am developing them as an adult. So,
Hmm.
which I now I understand is pretty common. So
Yep.
now I'm just now starting to understand and even figure out what things I'm allergic to. But I was never
Hmm.
allergic to anything before, so it is interesting, and it's
Definitely a
something
rising
that's really
problem.
needed. I mean, my sister has major food allergies. I know we were making a
Mhm.
joke earlier about people who feel like they have to live in a bubble because they have so many allergies. And you said, I know, I said you. And this tool is really going to help change people's lives so that they can feel more comfortable. So tell us. Well, you started to tell us already what motivated you to start the business. You said it was you. I mean, you had
Mhm.
allergies, but how did you kind of figure out that this was something that you could really market that was, others needed as much as you did?
Yeah, so first off, it was serendipity, right? I've had other like startup concepts in areas I have no clue about or any expertise on. And what didn't work with those is that I didn't get out the room like this guy named Steve Blank says, right? No one's going to take your idea. It's all about execution. So really getting out. I think I had a music-based app. Again, it was not Spotify, so don't worry about the details of it. But really, now that when I went through the process of kind of taking the L as a lesson and not a loss, right? I said to myself, well, let's kind of zoom out, right? And there's this book. It's if you're in healthcare, it's helpful, but there's some others that can help you out in your industries. The Stanford Biodesign book, and that book, because even though I had the healthcare background, Charmaine, I didn't have the medical device specific industry experience. I knew I can leverage my weaknesses with advisors, different teammates, but I made the decision to at least kind of let's learn as much as possible so we can onboard fast. So learn about the different stakeholders, your patient engagement groups, building those relationships early and often. That's how we kind of, I guess, through serendipity, got on the board for one of the fastest growing food allergy brands and advocacy groups that were out there. So for me, it was like measure twice, cut once. What can we learn as best as possible to ensure that you're not going to have a soft landing in this game that is startups, but you want to kind of de-risk as best as possible. So getting out of the room, as example, as mentioned, talking to the patients, talking to the doctors, anyone that has any type of fingerprints on this industry is so incredibly important when you think about getting started. And I think that's the same for others. So for me, getting started was as simple as, okay, what are my weaknesses or areas I can't commit too much time to as a founder? Okay, who can help out with that? Who can't we afford to pay these folks for or pay yet because we're early stage startup, and that's when I started connecting with advisors and founders. One thing I will say is that if I think Charmaine, you're probably the same way, right? You mentioned entrepreneurial. If someone comes to you for help, you're going to help, even if it's just a one-off.
Right.
And from Detroit to other folks in the healthcare ecosystem, we've been super fortunate to get that benefit over the last couple of years to get started.
Wow, I love that, Javier, that you talked about. I mean, you said a lot of things there, but what really resonated with me is that so often entrepreneurs don't ask for help,
Oh yeah.
right? They don't ask for help and getting out the room. It's kind of like my friends that aren't dating. I'm like, well, you're not going to date if you don't go out the door, right?
Yeah,
You're not
that's
going
the
to walk
bar.
up to your door and knock on it. And it's the same thing with an entrepreneur, right? You got to
Hmm.
get out the room and test whatever it is you're doing. Thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing that. So,
Of course.
so what brings you here is the fact that you won, right? So, how did winning the scale up pitch impact your business?
So first of all, from outside, before we get to the business side, being that my business is primarily centered in Detroit, family don't get to see what's going on too much. So the one of the biggest blessings since I've been doing this was when we were fortunate enough to make it to the Chicago regionals, sectionals. That's where I met the great Paula, the National Black NBA, and specifically, it was like half my family was there. Panamanian show up deep, So like I'm talking about, I saw babies I ain't seen. And I'm like, who baby is this? But no, ultimately, it was an incredible experience. First things first. But obviously, we did make it to the finalist for it, and we were fortunate to take it the distance. It was an incredible experience for us. It was a confidence booster. Obviously, the more you kind of continue to kind of move up, it's always awesome to kind of get not, I want to say validation, but just kind of see outside of your industry how are you being viewed, especially with all the different intricacies with regulatory and things of that nature. People believing in you, believing in your vision. And then beyond that, I think after the Houston event, man, I missed the in-person events, but that was a great event. Just incredible crowd. First time attending the National Black NBA. So beyond incredible judges, which I did connect with each and every one of them, not because, I think it's just a great thing to do. I think that's something we need to do a better job of in the old school in-person way, but you can do it virtually. But for me, it was just a matter of just really building up the brand, taking advantage of the social capital that came with winning it. Sidebar, met Beyonce's dad, aka Mr. Knowles. So I think that was a huge win. Shout out to Mr. Knowles. But overall, I think for us it was just one of the greater pitches, and it was a great opportunity to get in front of our tight knit community. Because one thing that we need to talk about more is how the quote unquote good old boys club. I'm not saying that one's being developed here, but it's just another form of a very tight knit network. And this is something that any entrepreneur that gets tapped into this, you should really take advantage of. If you just make it to the semis or the finals, so many great opportunities to connect, whether it's a founder, another founder, as well as other judges, folks in the audience. And the takeaways were invaluable. Saw an uptick in downloads, and we were also able to get a couple bit more term sheets towards investment during that time period as well, too. So it was a great season for us.
Great, great. I love that. You said you were able to use your financial and your social capital that you got from winning. And that was just the region. And the other thing, that I like for entrepreneurs to know who are thinking about it, even if you don't win, you said something. You use those networks and those connections
Absolutely.
all the way along. And you said lesson and not a loss. That's got to
Hmm.
be a hashtag somewhere, dude. I know it. That was awesome because
Thank you.
it's not always. Sometimes you get as much out of losing, right?
Oh
Because
yeah.
you learn so many things getting there. So thank you for sharing that. So
Hmm.
as we're talking about kind of sharing, what's one thing that you would pass along to potential entrants? There are men and women listening right now who are like, I wonder if I can do that. What's one thing that you would share with them?
I would say take it seriously, right? I think in the past, things are changing, but whenever it was like a diversity focused competition, folks didn't take it as seriously. And this is just my peripheral vision. I'm going on my own opinion, but I don't believe that it's always, at times back in the day, taken as serious as it should be. You want to take this like it's a big meeting to change the trajectory of your company because you don't know who's watching, the CEO of this company watching virtually, et cetera. So, number one, take it seriously. When in doubt, practice pitching. I've been fortunate to get on a lot of stages, but you better believe that the entire weekend, all I did was pitch. Almost, my wife came down to stay with me the nights down there as well too, and almost said to her like, "Man, you might have to go in the lobby. Get me in the room. I need the space, but I love her dearly, so I can do all that." But really, more than anything else, practice, practice, practice. No, you know your business better than anyone else. So any question is geared towards helping them as a judge understand you. So don't take it personal, right? It's a way for them to better assess. Does this make sense? Can I connect the dots, etc. Whatever needs to be informed, whatever the judge needs to be informed to make the best decision. Is what I would say for anyone that's interested in this. And as mentioned, like the networking is so key.
Great, thank you. I know I love that. Take it seriously. We had one of our other entrepreneurs, and they said the first time they did it, they were really kind of cocky about it, and they were like,
Wow.
I got this. But they
Hmm.
had it on a smaller plane. And so as
Hmm.
they moved up to these different playing fields, they realized they had not taken it seriously. So I really appreciate you saying that as you continue to move up, I mean it's a lot tougher competition. And so you
Oh
gotta
yeah.
up your game, right?
Yep.
Each time.
I've had my share of humble pie, and it's a lot of nutrients in it.
I love it.
Yep.
So you know what? We appreciate you being a member of National Black MBA. So
Mhm.
how has being a member impacted you either professionally or personally?
I would say just how willing a lot of I've talked to several board members over the last couple of years, just on and off. Another board member, Donald Comer, I was awesome brother. Met him in person. He's on my newsletter as well too. The Pray George, all of Robin. I was a lot of good people. Like when I tell you, like if I need something, like hey, I need this video from 3 years ago that you may have in some Dropbox folder from someone else. Can you find it? And then like a day later, I was like, I was just hoping that y'all had a little clip. You gave me exactly what I was looking for on a low level. On a high level, from the most recent to the current leadership of the National Black MBA, this willfulness to just legit have a conversation and just get to know me. And that's important because you don't want to networking is not, hey, I need something, hey, can you help me? It's more so, hey, let's have a conversation, get to know each other from a baseline standpoint. And then, hey, if I have any like, trigger points, like I remember Charmaine saying something around PR and her interest in this space, let me just reach out to her as an example, right? So I think those have been some of the biggest value adds. I have taken most advantage most recently to the winner circle. I think and there's others folks that I think that have pitched that have also are of the same caliber, if not higher as well too, from past pitch competitions as well too. So really just kind of seeing whenever you can get involved with any of the assets that are out there, check them out. Put down the podcast and open up this web app and check out the winner circle or whatever else. But the mentorship, I think, is number one, and the connections towards people that legitimately are vested in your future and your success.
Wow, thank you, thank you. And that's what whenever we talk about, people say, "Well, why should I be a member?" I always talk about number one is just access, is
Oh yeah,
access, right?
yeah.
And then number two is around what you said is it's a lot of people in this organization who are willing to help, but you got it
Hmm.
right. You got to be present to play. So you have to be
Absolutely.
a member to have access, right? To be
Yep.
able to get that mentorship. But thank you for sharing how many different ways people have touched you. And I love that you've reached out again. You have
Oh,
to
absolutely.
ask for the help. So I'm glad to hear that. So
No doubt.
We're talking about the pitch competition. For some people that are listening, that's far, far away from them. They're still trying to think about starting a business. I mean, they're at
Hmm.
step one. Any advice for somebody that is listening that's right at the beginning of starting that business?
Yeah, number one, just get started. I think what's the phrase? Analysis paralysis. I've done it. Like I said, the numerous ideas that were like multi-billion dollars easy, right, in my brain, from an implementation standpoint. And I didn't do, I did work, but it wasn't the necessary work to kind of get out of the room, as I mentioned. Think about it this way: if you plant a seed in the basement on your carpet, it's not going to grow, right? It needs sun, water, it needs all the nutrients and elements of the out, of the ecosystem, right? By having the conversation, staying connected with other founders, tapping in on social, obviously getting into the National Black MBA and other like-minded organizations, you can really do some cool things. So get active and just get started early is the number one thing I would say. And beyond that, something I mentioned before, and it's really, really helped me, Charmaine, in my career and just other folks, the L. The L is a lesson, not a loss. And it provides you with an evergreen mentality where no matter what happens, like you talk about humble pie, it's almost like humble casserole at this point. Like I've had a lot, a lot of it. So it's like I've had some wins at the Republic, right? But the reality is that while we may be hovering above 500 in terms of wins and losses, regardless if it was under 500 from a sports analogy standpoint, what did I learn? So I'm a sports guy. I talked about the Bulls back in the day. I would watch film, right? So what could we have done better as a team? Football was my sport back then, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the things I would say to just get started. Obviously, don't keep the idea to yourself. You never know. And you ask for one thing, I'm giving you a full blown, I'll say book. But one more thing, while you're still in corporate America, definitely you should be passively interviewing your colleagues and coworkers because you can find out who that next co-founder is, first hire, or the type of individual you do not want to hire in the first place. Make sure you're really diligent about that as well too. It could save you some HR pain and growth pain down the road.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for all of those tips. And the audience, as you all are watching, I know you have some great questions. Please enter your questions. So we are looking for more questions. So I think we have one. So we have one from Yolanda Javier. It says,
Mhm.
thanks from your research. Is the increase in allergies associated with food preparation, chemicals in food, etc.? Or is it more environmental issues that have made our bodies uber sensitive? I know that was a long question, but you want to
No,
read it again? You got it.
No, no, no. It's a great question. I think I get that question a lot, and the reality is that there's no concrete answer. I think it's a concoction, a gumbo of those resources. You talk about introducing the westernized diet. Here's one example concretely. In Australia, Australia has a very similar makeup in terms of a very diverse population. Food choices, obviously, cuisine a little different. That's one of the fastest growing food allergy sectors in the world right now, and it's partly because of that westernized diet being introduced to. And again, this is me with my limited tinfoil hat right now, to a certain extent, right? No tinfoil, but the research is out there. Also, I would say there could be a little bit something about. I think it's called the hygiene hypothesis, where we're overly, sanitized for the most part, right? So it kind of weakens the immune system. So there's lots of like multi-year studies that are trying to figure this out and get closer to it. But I think because we have so many different individuals, whether you're black, brown, yellow, or whatever, white, have this allergy versus the next, it's still something that's to be determined. But I wish we had a direct answer on that because testing will be a lot easier. That's another bucket and opportunity in our space. But we're going to figure it out.
Great. Thank you. And thank you, Yolanda, for that question. So we just have about 5 more minutes. So I want to make sure we get your questions in. Javier, I do have two more questions for you. So one,
Mhm.
you talked about having a number of different businesses. I was just wondering, can you share how did you know when to pivot and go do something else?
Oh yeah. So I'll start with the first one, noteworthy. You might be able to pick up the app. I always tell when I'm on a one-on-one basis, I just tell folks so noteworthyapp.co. Sounds amazing. Like it sounds amazing. Really, when I did not have any like real user data for a mobile app that required no type of I'll say FDA requirements or things of that nature. When I started to see in the music space that is super litigious, obviously, you just can't put anybody's music on that. So I kind of just took a step back and said, this ain't for me. This is somebody else's baby right there. I did some consulting for a while, just kind of anybody else's idea I'll work on. But the aha moment that made me pivot is that I enjoyed working on my own company's big ideas as well too. So I said it'd be a disservice to continue working for other folks when I'm not into it. Not to say you can't be a hired gun to do something, lack of a better phrase, but it was those moments where I said, nah, let's do something different. In terms of the realization of allergy, it came through just talking with folks like yourself, just having a conversation. Hey, I'm kind of thinking about this. Like I mentioned, putting it out there, getting it out of the room organically at random places, getting coffee, food, and folks responded to it very well. And I said, hey, there might be something here. And every time I kind of dug in deeper, there was always something more and something more. And then we saw that there wasn't really that much in our space too. So one another founder tip I'll say is like, do not ignore page 4 or 5 of Google. That you can find more when you're looking at competition. There's always competition, and you need to make sure that it's not a problem, but it helps you kind of reframe and really emphasize what your value proposition is. So early on, long-windedly, I didn't really get a sense of what my value proposition was with the other endeavors. One of them I kind of knew, and it wasn't for those other companies, and kind of fell in love with the food allergy space. I have it trying to scratch my own itch, and I told myself if it's just me that buys the device, then we got one customer, but we're lucky. We got a lot of folks waiting.
That's great. Well, here's my last question. I'm going to see if any others come up. My last question is, what book, movie, or mantra really inspires you?
You know what? It's something I took for myself, and then I kind of gave it to the company or just infused it into the company. It's one of our core values: adapt and attack. That's basically grit in a phrase. It means that you're going to figure it out by any means necessary. There's so many things that happened last year as an example. It was devastating, and there's nothing that phrase doesn't even do justice, obviously. But when you think about things like that can impact you, how do you stay the course, right? When you get veered off of the course, is your north star in that direction? No, then adapt, figure it out, right? It's helped me so much because again, when you have the amount of humble pie I've had in life, you need to be able to ensure that it's for your growth and not your detriment.
Wow, that's great. We have a couple more minutes. Are there any other questions? Okay, we have another one. So, Javier, how did you protect your idea while shopping for investors? Great question.
No, it's a great question, especially when I talk about getting out of the room right away. In our space, medical device or anything that's that you can get some IP around, software is kind of tricky sometimes. I'm not a lawyer, so take it with a grain of salt. But it was one of those things where I said, hey, look, let's the very first funds we went after, it was a grant. We went after it like 3 times. It was like $7,000. I felt like it was $7.2 billion at the time. And it was just something for us to get a provisional patent. So I will say that talk to an attorney first and foremost, do a Google search first and foremost, see if there's anything else out there. You still may not find what's not been submitted, but for us, when you talk to investors, the reality is that they're not trying to take your idea in the first place. Legitimately, they just want to understand you, your business, and how scalable it could be, as well as how helpful they can be for the most part. So, if anything, never send an NDA to an investor. You're not going to be taken seriously. But just if anything, if you ever have any, I'll say, concerns about your information being taken, what I do, this is more concrete now. You have a long pitch deck that gives you all the details, every single nook and cranny. Then I got something called an abbreviated pitch deck, and that's probably about 5 to 7 pages. Nothing too crazy, maybe 5 to 6 really. And it's talking about, hey, this is what it is, problem, solution, target market, opportunity, etc. And you keep it simple. So there's different ways to kind of provide value. Those are just a couple of mine from my experience.
Okay, this is our last question. How do you stay relevant with your brand?
You know what? Doing things like this, number one. So legitimately making sure you get in front of the room, get out of the room, as I mentioned before. And really, I'm a firm believer that your customers, your patients, in our case, they're your best sources of data and best sources of insight. So we're building something off, kind of in stealth mode right now that's going to really transform parts of healthcare and legitimately talking to the people that have the problem, talking to the doctors that have the problem. And besides that, I ain't gonna lie, we've been super fortunate through some Google programs in the past. And again, having another individual or just marketing person on our team has been crazy for us and amazing for us.
Great, thank you. I want to thank everyone who asked questions because it's so important that we're engaging with you all. And we know that you have really good questions that I'm sure other people have as well. So, but with that, I want to say thank you to Javier Evelyn. It has just been awesome to get to learn more about you and more about your awesome company, Allergy. Thank you for taking the time to share your experiences with us. We wish you much success as you continue your entrepreneurial journey. This concludes the Scale Up Winners Circle series, and we hope that you all enjoyed meeting our National Black MBA Scale Up winners on a more personal level. And more importantly, we hope that you have gained insights from their experiences. I know I have. I have a page full of notes, so I'm loving it. Applications. I know some of you are out there thinking, I can do this. And I want to tell you, yes, you can. So, applications for the 2021 Scale Up Pitch Challenge will open mid May. For more information, please visit National Black MBA website at www.mbmbaa.org. Again, my name is Charmaine Ward Milner. I have been so humbled to be asked to serve as the moderator for this three-part series of the Winner's Circle series. I've had the opportunity to meet some amazing entrepreneurs who have won our Scale Up Pitch. And I hope that each of you have been able to join us for all three. But I know if you missed it, you can get the recording. But I just want to say thank you again, Javier, and thank you to National Black MBA.
Thank you so much, Charmaine. Thanks all.